Welcome to my video talking about balanced and unbalanced. Also, I'd like to know your feedback, so if you care about it or if you don't, whether you use balanced or not, please do let me know in the comments. And for example, I'm just showing you the actual Tempotec Sonata HD Pro, which is 3.5, which is actually quite a useful one because you can change the cables. And I do have on the actual table the Sonata BHD, which is 2.5, so you got 3.5 and 2.5. And this also applies for digital audio players, not really desktop gear because they have 4.4 as well, and XLR, but that's completely separate. So yeah, I'm going to go into actual differences between those two. So the Sonata HD Pro can do, I think, 32 ohms, about 30 milliwatts. And the BHD, which is the balanced one, can do 100 or just over 100. So there's quite a bit of difference. So I'm going to get on to some negatives first, which is the actual battery consumption. So if you use these with a phone, or if you have a digital audio player that has 2.5 or 3.5, I've noticed, say for example, if something's got 10 hours worth of battery life, you probably gain an extra 5 through the 3.5. So for example, something does 15 hours through the 3.5, and then through the bands just say 10 hours. Is it kind of really worth like the 5 hours, of loss? Because by default it does do higher power. So actually, onto the benefits. The benefits of balanced is the grounds aren't shared, so left and right grounds aren't shared. That may or may not be important for the earphone, but the important thing for me is the power. So for example, as you can see, that the BHD's got the 100 milliwatts instead of 30. It is better for harder to drive IMs, for example, because it puts out more power. It's simple as that. And they do measure quite well, obviously splitting like that actually has two CS431s, so basically each DAC is doing each channel, so there is good benefits between them. But then again, the HD Pro does measure quite well. But this is just an example for this actual type of video. Kind of a negative, I think, is now how robust they are. Like you saw on the video earlier, the 2.5 as a connector is quite thin. So I'm always wary of 2.5 connectors compared to like 3.5 connectors. Obviously 4.4, the newer standard, is kind of big. So like you can see there, the Kbear attached to the AudioSense T800. Now that's a good example of balanced, because they're kind of weird to power because they've got a low impedance. So that's where like a balanced output does help, because it can pull out more power than 3.5, for example. They're kind of a niche product, but normal earphones probably don't really benefit that much. Let's on to the types. There's 2.5, obviously 3.5, which is not balanced. Then you got 4.4. Then you've got your XLR, which is obviously bigger. Obviously this video is mainly 2.5 and 3.5. Let's go into even more kind of negatives. 2.5 does not support inline controls or inline microphone, which is kind of critical for some people. So you have to weigh up the difference. Is it better to have higher output or lose basically like microphone use and inline control use? That's one thing you just have to kind of wage up the differences. But yeah, like 2.5 with the thinner, the thinner actual connector themselves. That's one reason I probably don't use it, out of my home. At home, I use it quite often because I can actually be careful. But using it, on the go, I still think 3.5 is probably the better one. And you have to, like I say, the higher power consumption. That's one thing to weigh in as well. That's why I prefer on the go to use Obviously Bluetooth, which is a separate thing, but I prefer to use 3.5. Then when I'm at home, I use 2.5. Are you really going to gain? Some say the sound quality is better, but are you really going to gain anything, on the go where your conditions aren't really that perfect? But quickly, between these two, the Sonata BHD attached cable, the HD Pro, you can use it on iOS as well because the cable's different. And then you can obviously use it with Android, and obviously both work with Android. This is the Tempotec V1A, which is 3.5, but it's got the Type-C on the bottom, which does support the balanced adapter. Again, higher power consumption, so you have to weigh in the differences. So this is that's obviously a 3.5 connector. I'm just quickly showing you. Now it should be going again a 2.5. But you can see kind of a 3.5. I've always had no issues with kind of build quality. So yeah, this is just the Kbear 2.5. You can see, like, obviously we know there's a size difference, but you can see the kind of how thin they are. And that's kind of it really. So let's get on to the actual conclusion, shall we say. So I like 2.5 and 3.5. On the whole, I actually do technically prefer the 3.5 connection. It's probably more robust, and you gain the benefits of less power usage plus microphone use and inline controls. But 2.5 obviously technically has a higher power output, so it is more useful for something that's kind of hard to push. But that all depends on your situation. I only use the 2.5 at home, so that means I can be really careful. 3.5 in my opinion is more robust. And that's it. So that's just those two, for example. This doesn't really include 4.4 because that's a much bigger connector, and obviously XLR for desktop amps. Again, completely different connector. And I hope you like this video. I hope it's a bit different. And thanks for watching, and take care.